Thanks for starting your November with the Center for Food Integrity and fellow food chain members as we connect it up with Dr. Food, featuring as always Dr. David Hughes. Food is on everyone's mind as the holidays approach, and the team at CFI is working hard to help the food system to build consumer trust now and year round. I encourage you to take a moment to visit us at foodintegrity.org to learn more about our member offerings, programs, trainings, and consumer research. This is also where you can find out more about our Trust Insights Council, of which Dr. Hughes is a member. David's extensive bio can be found on our website. Welcome, David.
Hi, delighted to be with you.
Nice to be with you too. As we jump into this fastest 15 minutes in food, I want to remind all of our listeners that we try to leave a few minutes at the end of the webcast for Q&A, so please feel free to add questions to the chat and I'll pull them up at the end. So let's jump right in, David. There's no shortage of change again in the UK. As you and I have discussed, the political turmoil you're experiencing is adding to this feeling of additional unprecedented times, but are pandemics, wars, and price spike really unprecedented?
Yeah, well, you're right there, Mickey. It's chaotic here, I can assure you. 3 prime ministers in the space of 4 months. I was amused. The UK equivalent of Webster's dictionary just announced the new word of the year. It does it every year, and this year it's perma-crisis, and that's defined as an extended period of economic and political instability, and we've sure got that. Of course, as you say, is that unprecedented? No, we've seen it all before. If I went back, I couldn't go back, but 200 years ago, we had 3 new prime ministers in 1 year. However, 2 of them died in post. So that explained that. I mean, the 3 we've had in the last 4 months, we lost 2, not because of death, but because of incompetence, actually. But fingers crossed that anyway, that it's more stable, and also that our new king, Charles III, sees out the decade. God bless him. As you said, unprecedented what? The pandemic wasn't unprecedented. Let's not forget the Spanish flu that ravaged our world 100 years ago. And then I was just reflecting on August, we saw that really severe food price spike. And that wasn't a one-off either. If you went back 50 years to 1973, we had a similarly severe food price shock when the Ukrainian and Russian grain harvest failed, and OPEC members shorted the oil market because of the Israeli-Egypt war. And it's just a reminder to me that what goes around comes around. It was ever thus. But just looking at what's happening now in the UK, what about food price inflation? Well, actually, overall, it's rising at 14% per year, which is high, but there's something worse than that. There's the Office for National Statistics took a look at what's happening to the lowest food prices that we've got, which tend to be private label, frequently bought products, and they're increasing by 17% year on year. And if you take my market, probably 40% of households, so 4 out of 10 households, are on $40,000 or less, and they're under huge pressure right now.
Mm-hmm.
And one reflection of that, I know it's the same to a lesser extent probably in the US, that demand for free food from food banks, for example, is sky high. And donations are down. A lot of the donations normally come from supermarkets, but supermarkets are just improving their food waste performance, not least because they need to, but also because their margins are under pressure. So that's less excess food going into food banks. So no, it's tough. And actually, I thought it was going to be even tougher because at the beginning of the week, Russia threatened and then said that they were going out of the grain export deal, allowing grain to be exported in the Black Sea from the Ukraine. But I was just delighted to see yesterday, was it, or late last night, that they've changed their view on that, and now they've rejoined the deal. Remember, if you went back to pre-invasion time, so that's pre-February of this year, that Ukraine was exporting 5 million tons a month of grain, not least of it going to North Africa, which are countries in North Africa which are really under stress just at the moment. So, it's tough times.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing. It's not a pretty picture, but I hear there are a few bright spots for the UK and Europe.
Yeah, it's not all, I'm by nature, I'm not a miserable soul, but in Europe and in UK in particular, we're having a warm fall. So if I went back to last weekend, it was 75 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, and for goodness sake, we're into November now. It's not a pretty sight, Nikki, but we're still wearing shorts. And here we are in November. And we haven't, but importantly, we haven't had to turn the heat on. So for example, at home, we haven't put the heat on just yet, and we're into November. Well, so what? In our little house, there's just me and Susan Hughes, we use natural gas to heat the house and to cook. And I just got the estimate for next year from our energy supplier, and the bill is expected to be $5,000 US for next year. That's just for gas, which is for cooking and for heating. If I add in electricity, that will be at least another $1,000. So we're on, say, $500 a month for energy for the house. Now, luckily we can sort of afford that, but a lot of people can't. So it's really good. But the warm fall is helping. And also what's sort of intriguing is that because Europe is so concerned about availability of gas through the winter, remember that most European countries get most of their gas and oil from Russia, and we're afraid that Mr. Putin will just turn the tap off. So they've been storing gas in advance, and now gas storage is 95% full right across Europe. And as a result of that, actually, the spot price of gas has just collapsed. So it is now 1/3 of the price that it was in August. So, good deal. And again, too, on the positive side, you can certainly see it in the UK that consumers have got the bit between their teeth, and they're starting to use less energy in the home. They're turning lights off. As I said, they're not putting the heat. If they've got heat on, it's at less levels. So mind you, if you've got children, as you'll know, it's a challenge to get children to turn lights off or to turn their electronic devices off, for goodness sake.
Correct.
So, no. And what other positive? I mean, well, I'm pleased to see we've still got chronic problems relating to labor availability in the food supply chain. I mean, it is just awful. I mean, today I'm with my son who's got restaurants, and that's a real problem. But we're seeing an acceleration of automation right across the food chain. Just more and more investment. And it came to mind for me, at the beginning of the week, I was in London, and I was in a Slim Chickens outlet, which is a fast food chain, actually from the US. And my order was taken and my meal served by a robot. So, sort of brilliant, just the job. So there's good stuff, even in bad times, I'm delighted to say.
Amazing. Yeah, we're having a really lovely fall here as well. So able to keep our heat off for another few weeks, even in Chicago. So our final topic today is on the topic of meat. So I understand your most recent travels to Australia and Thailand. Meat has again been on your mind. So tell us more.
Right. Yeah, I do a lot of work in meat. And as you say, I was two weeks ago, I was in Australia. And Australia and the US are the highest consumers of meat in the known world. I mean, Aussies and Americans eat per person 200 pounds plus of meat. I'm always overwhelmed by that. But so I noticed that you're really good at eating it, but it often strikes me, and it's the same in Australia, that you're not good at displaying it. Whenever I've just been, not long ago, I was in the US, but as I said, I was in Australia, go into a supermarket there and you see a wall of red meat, of great big bits of meat. And is that brilliant from a consumer point of view? What sort of intrigues me is that you name meat products by their point of anatomical origin on the carcass. Okay, so it's chuck or brisket or top round. And I think that means just nothing to anybody under the age of about 40. And actually, what you're doing is you're presenting a meal problem for them, not giving them a meal solution.
Right.
And the other thing, just as an observation about meat as I go around the world, is that increasingly we're seeing sort of polarization of price between the meats. So you've got meats for the haves, those who've got income, and that tends to be beef. And then at the other end of the scale, you've got for the have-nots, which typically would be chicken. Of course, you've got premium chicken, and of course, you've got some discount beef. But there's a huge difference now between the meat species, and beef might be 4-5 times more expensive than chicken. And all I know, just looking at the pressure that many people are in the world at the moment, price pressure, etc., income pressure, that we're going to see movement in terms of consumption between the meats. And I would expect to see beef consumption per capita come down in most countries, and it will be picked up by lower priced meat protein, like, for example, chicken. I saw that in Thailand, where the differential between beef and chicken is just absolutely enormous. I mean, but we don't have to panic. It doesn't mean that there's no room for premium beef. I mean, an example, in all the countries I've visited in the last 4 weeks, well, 4 or 5 of them, is increasingly you see Wagyu beef. And, it's become extraordinarily fashionable, and it is pretty damn expensive. And it's a reminder that, that even in tough times, the uber rich can feast, and they can feast on Wagyu. But let me just, no, we haven't got much time. Just let me pop one point back onto to meat and eggs, for that matter, in the UK. We have, it's not a pandemic, but it's an epidemic when it comes to avian influenza at the moment. So AI, as it's called, we have the worst outbreaks that we have ever had. And initially, it was particularly hitting turkey flocks. And remember, we've got Christmas coming up. So let's starting to panic. Oh my God, will there be turkeys for Christmas? But it's got worse, frankly. So yesterday or the day before, come November the 7th, which is Monday, then all poultry in England has to be kept inside. And just imagine now, if you take our egg industry, for example, 75% of all eggs consumed in the UK are free range. Well, they won't be from next week, because everything is shut inside. Wow. And there's a real worry, as I said, about poultry as we move towards Christmas. And what the industry wants to do is to slaughter early, freeze, and then thaw when it comes to near the Christmas, and sell it as fresh, if you will, albeit previously frozen. So it's a big deal, and this is a big deal right across Europe. It'll cause chaos in the poultry industry.
Yeah, this was one of the questions that came in this morning, was the poultry prices and availability. Would that be the same with the Christmas goose?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Frankly, I don't know if there will be geese for Christmas. Because some of the we don't have it's not a big item, but there are some famous flocks, if you will, and they've just been devastated. It's tough trucking if you're in the poultry industry and the egg industry, of course. Very, very difficult times. And it's sort of worrisome, if I look globally, that we're seeing more and more these sort of animal livestock related diseases. And if you take avian influenza, how can you stop it? It's wild bird spread, and you can't pen them up. No.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So one other question that's come through is, what are the trends in plant-based meat alternatives? And I know we've covered this in the past, but specifically, how is their sensory quality improving?
Well, A, it is. B, it needed to be.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that in Europe in general, sorry, with the exception of Germany, where it's still going well, that we're seeing the slowing of demand that you already see in the US for plant-based meats, and I think it's a combination here that they're still coming up with good sensory attributes. We have to improve the product quality, and also right now it's relatively expensive. And so, that's additional pressure. And I think that we're going to see little or no growth through this year. But the product is improving, and it will find a place.
Right.
Just to finish, it will please the meat people that I was just talking to my 10-year-old grandchild, and he said, "Yeah, we used to have a meat-free Friday at school, but we've stopped doing it." And I said, "Oh, really? Why is that?" He said, "Well, he's only 10. He said, we agreed in principle, but it tasted bad." And I thought, well, good on you, Ethan. So in the end, we put food in our mouths, and we want to put food in our mouths that we enjoy.
Right.
It's got a while to go, but there will be a place for plant-based meats.
There will be a place, and I think what we're hearing is that they're taking this time to regroup and improve on those sensory qualities. So, thank you for the question from the listeners. So that's all the time we have for this edition of Dr. Food. So thank you, David, again, as always. And I guess next month on December 1st will be our final session for 2022, and we may have some sort of holiday topic. We'll figure it out between now and then. So again, listeners, please join us at foodintegrity.org. David and everyone, have a wonderful, warm fall day.
Cheerio, and thanks very much. Lovely to talk to you again. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.